Alright, so Kobe Bryant's retirement has been just a huge deal this year. Nobody else ever in the NBA has got a big ol' retirement tour and all that. So I thought it would be interesting to look up other players who have retired this year. And I just found a whole lot of interesting things in regards to all the stuff that I've been talking about with Pope Francis and the 923, also Philadelphia. I'm going to include some other stuff about the Warriors and the Cavs games from the other night as well. But anyway, let's get started here. So Elton Brand, he retired on August 11th, and then he came back to play for the Philadelphia 76ers. So we've talked about the Warriors being originally from Philadelphia, then they moved to San Francisco, then Golden State and whatnot. It's also important because of Pope Francis's visit to the United States. The last place that he went was Philadelphia. He even gave a speech on Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address lectern. But anyway, look at this. August 11th is when he announced his retirement, and then he came out of retirement on January 4th. A span of 146 days. I don't know how many times I've mentioned 146 lately. I talked about June 14th, which is 14/6, being Pope Francis's 1,189th day as Pope. Also Donald Trump's 70th birthday. It's also the 70th season of the NBA. 1,189 goes along with the chapters in the King James Bible. Also, Oakland, California, where the Warriors play, equals 146. David Blatt, who got fired, his full name, David Michael Blatt, equals 146 as well. He got fired on 1/22. Golden State equals 122. I mean, just see my previous stuff. I've mentioned this over and over and over in regards to Barack Obama or Donald Trump assassination, among other things. It's also even a span of 4 months, 24 days. Elton Brand equals 42 in Gematria, and he even wore the number 42. But a super interesting thing about this day when he came back, January 4th, it was the day that the Cleveland Cavaliers defeated the Toronto Raptors, and Cleveland had a record of 23-9 after winning. So it was the 9/23 or the September 23rd. Pope Francis came to the United States on his 923rd day as Pope. He went to the White House the next day on 9/23 at 9:23 a.m. We're also in the 239th year of the United States. So super interesting. Elton Brand comes back to Philadelphia, and then the same day that the Cavs become 23-9. And it makes me wonder because there is a lot of connections to Cleveland this year and Pope Francis and whatnot. LeBron James in Jewish Gematria equals 923 as well. So he was connected last year as well. So I don't know. I'm up in the air with it. I really think that the Warriors are still going to win, but Cleveland is completely coded to Pope Francis. A lot of the sports championships all have been connected to Pope Francis. But for whatever the reason, I feel like LeBron James being connected to Pope Francis, it doesn't work out for him or whatever. Anyway, in this game, notice that the Cleveland Cavaliers scored 122 points. Golden State equals 122. Pope Francis equals 122. San Francisco equals 122. San Antonio also equals 122. So interesting, the big little ring of teams that are just been talked about a lot this year. But also the Raptors scored 100 points. The Cleveland Cavaliers are all about the 51. 51 in Gematria equals 100. Also, if you write out 146 that I've been talking about over and over and over, literally that equals 100 as well. So super interesting. The Raptors also got their 15th loss in this game. The Cavaliers became 15-1 at home, 1-5-1, the mirrors of 15 and 51. The 36th prime number is also 151. I've mentioned 151 a whole lot around the 99 and the assassination of Obama and how it connects to the 44 even. So interesting. This was also on the 4th day of the year. But I'd like to think that the 122 is connected to the Warriors. But I want to point out this year in 2016, 5-1 is the 122nd day. So it could just all be about the 51 still with the 122 this year. Also an interesting little thing, Obama turned 51 221 days before Pope Francis became the Pope. So it just sticks out, 221 is the mirror of 122. Also, February 21st is the 52nd day of the year. 5-2, normally the 122nd day of the year. Also, this game was on 1-4, and then 14 days later was when the Warriors beat the Cavs by 34. It was also 34 games after LeBron was 9 of 23 on 11-4. The word 14 in Gematria equals 41 and 104, which I'll actually talk more about as we move on here. The total score of the game, 100 to 122, is 222. 222 is the 53rd day of the year. It's when the Golden State Warriors picked up Anderson Varejao after Portland had dropped him. 4 days before that, or 3 days before that, Portland had beat the Warriors by 33 points, but it was the Warriors' 53rd game. Anyway, Warriors, they lost to Portland on 219. Back-to-back championships in Gematria equals 219. The NBA season to the first game of the NBA Finals is 219 days. Also, just want to point out, I noticed a lot of LeBron James didn't play in a lot of stuff last year, and also this year. But anyway, LeBron James didn't play on 3/29, the mirror of 9/23. LeBron James didn't play in Gematria equals 219 as well. They lost to the Houston Rockets. Houston equals 51, just like Cleveland, just like LeBron James, just like Cleveland Cavs. Anyway, the Cleveland Cavaliers lost and they scored 100 points. So remember, 51 equals 100. I also noticed Steve Kerr in Gematria equals 51. So I mean, that really sticks out because a lot of the stuff I've been talking about, I've talked about how it's connected to Steve Kerr mostly. I mean, he's connected to the Bulls, also the Spurs, also the Cavs, also the Warriors as a coach. And I mean, just think about his name even. Stephen Kerr. I mean, his real name is Stephen Douglas Kerr, or Stephen, however you want to say it. Sounds a lot like Stephen Curry, right? And honestly, I don't know the complete significance of that. I just wanted to point it out because, I don't know, it just really stands out to me. Stephen Curry and Stephen Kerr. Kerr, though, is super interesting in regards to Pope Francis because he turned 50 years old the last day that Pope Francis was in Philadelphia, and also his last day in the United States. He was even born in 1965. Philadelphia, the small way, equals 65. His NBA debut, December 17th, 1988, was also Pope Francis's 52nd birthday. Remember, in a normal year, 5-2, May 2nd, is the 122nd day. The 52nd prime is 239. But anyway, I've been waiting for this all year. I've been watching multiple teams, waiting for it to happen. I thought on 3/29, I thought that Stephen Curry was actually going to shoot 9 of 23, and then somehow he ended up being 11 and 23. But in this game, the Rockets versus Cleveland, LeBron James didn't play. And look, Kyrie Irving was 9 of 23. This rarely happens. I've made a post. I went through and looked at like every player this year, and only 8 players have shot 9 of 23 this year. and they were all significant. So Kyrie Irving shoots 9 of 23. LeBron James doesn't play this game. The game on 3/29 even, the reverse of 9/23. But look, it was 146 days after LeBron was 9 of 23. Also, 3 months, 4 days after Irving came back on Christmas from his injury, and that's when the Warriors and the Cavs played. The Warriors won 89-83. So just interesting, I've been talking about the 34 not being a good thing for the Cavs because of LeBron, but then Irving is 9 of 23, 3 months and 4 days after he comes back. But Irving definitely sticks out here. So last season, on January 9th, Irving was also 9 of 23 when the Cavs played the Golden State Warriors. And you know what? LeBron James didn't play this game either. And wouldn't you believe it? I mean, this game to the NBA Finals last year where Kyrie Irving got hurt, a span of 146 days. So he shoots 9 of 23, 146 days after LeBron is 9 of 23. Last year he shoots 9 of 23, 146 days before the NBA Finals begin. He also shot 9 of 23 10 days before that game last year on New Year's Eve. And I mean, guess what? LeBron James didn't play this game either. So LeBron James didn't play equals 219, just like back-to-back championships. Pretty interesting that Irving only gets 9 of 23 when LeBron James doesn't play. But what truly makes me wonder is that last year, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry were also shooting 9 of 23. Neither one of them has shot 9 of 23 this season, so I've kind of been just waiting it out to see if anything happens with it, to figure out whether if it's good or bad for the Cavs to be doing the 9 of 23 stuff. Steph Curry, the first time in his career that he shot 9 of 23 was the last home game that they lost ever against the Chicago Bulls on 1/27. If you go from that date, 1/27 of last year, to the NBA Finals this year, it's a span of 1 year, 4 months, and 6 days. A lot like 146. But Curry also shot 9 of 23 4 days after this when they beat the Orlando Magic, and that's when the streak of the home games started. And then he also did it on February 11th against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Klay Thompson was also 9 of 23 last season, and he did it in December against the Chicago Bulls. So hopefully that makes sense. There's just a lot of 9/23 stuff going on and 146. Also, March 29th is 65 days before June 2nd when the NBA Finals begin this year. Once again, 65. Philadelphia equals 65 the small way. The NBA season began on 10/27, which is 65 days left till the end of the year. It's also Philadelphia's 333rd anniversary last year in 2015. Kobe Bryant retired on the 333rd day of the year. He's a Philadelphia native. Also interesting, 65 days is 2 months, 4 days. LeBron James, last year when he lost the finals, became 2-4 in the NBA Finals. LeBron James equals 42, the mirror. Also, it says it's 9 weeks and 2 days, which just sticks out a lot because if you write out the word 219, it equals 92. If you write out Warriors win back-to-back championships, it equals 92. 92 in Gematria equals 46 and 140. That's supposed to say 145, but Chicago equals 46. Chicago, Illinois equals 145, just like 92. And also, in 1992 was when the Chicago Bulls won their second championship in their first three-peat or whatever, or back-to-back, whatever you want to call it. And the Bulls even beat Portland, the team that beat the Warriors on 2/19. And in 92, it was also the 46th NBA season. Chicago equals 46. In the Warriors game on 3/29, Sean Livingston made a layup or whatever, made the score 46-46 with 46 seconds exactly on the clock in the second quarter. I mean, just want to point out, Livingston is number 34. I've talked about him before in the Lakers game, I believe it was, or I can't remember what game it was for sure, but Shaq called him Randy Livingston, and it was a big deal, and whatever, Randy equals 62 and 26, and it's all about the 62s and 26s. Lots of sixes this year. But just interesting, he makes the score 46-46 with 46 seconds left. They're all about the Chicago Bulls and whatnot. Chicago equals 46. Then they ended up going 49-46 at halftime. Warriors equals 49 in Gematria. But also 46 plus 46 equals 92. All the 92 that I've been talking about, I talked about up here, 219 equals 92. Sean Livingston in Gematria equals 69, just like Cleveland Cavaliers. But in Gematria, 69 equals 49. So I don't know, just kind of a, just crazy how it's all interrelated. And the reason that I mentioned the 34 is just because it's connected to the 923. Remember, the Warriors beat the Cavs by 34 on January 18th. It was 34 games after LeBron was 9 of 23. Also, the Warriors beat the Lakers by 34 points the first time they played them this year. Kobe Bryant absolutely surrounded with the number 34. He even tore his Achilles against Golden State when he was 34. He scored 34 points. He got the Lakers their 43rd win that game. I mean, tons of other stuff with it. Also, the last time that the Wizards played the Warriors was on the 34th day of the year this year. Steve Kerr and Frank Saul are the only players to ever win 4 consecutive championships in a row on 2 different teams. So Steve Kerr won the 3 with the Bulls. Then he went to San Antonio and won another one. So he won 4 consecutive. But interesting, Frank Saul, the other guy who did that, is 92 years old. Also, in the game where the Warriors beat the Cavs by 34, look at the headline here. They spelled laughter wrong. Straight over Cavs and laugher. They forgot the T. Well, if you write out laugher, it equals 72. The Warriors are chasing the Bulls' 72 wins. And laughter, if you write out the real word, equals 92. So, who knows? I don't think that's any coincidence that they did that. I even talked about how they did that in the Philadelphia 76ers game, where they had the score as 107-7. I'll pull it up really quick here. 107-7, even though it was 107-97. Super interesting too. I'm going to make another video about Prince Charles and the Cavaliers and how it ties into the English Civil War and whatnot. And King Charles equals 107 in Gematria. Also, Philadelphia and New York, both places that the Pope Francis went on his trip, other than Washington, D.C. And I pointed this out before, but look at the Knicks. The Knicks went on a streak here. So they had scored 107 points the game before that. They scored 107 points against Philadelphia. They scored 107 points against Chicago. Then again, they lost to Orlando, who scored 107 points on them. So just a weird streak there of 4 games with 107 points. And of course, Orlando, the team that the Warriors broke the Chicago Bulls' 44 home game win streak against. So also one more interesting thing about the day when the Cavs lost to the Warriors by 34, it was the 32nd anniversary of Steve Kerr's dad's murder. And I talked about him before being connected to the number 31 a whole bunch. Oakland equals 31. Anderson Varejao even came 31 days after David Blatt was fired, or 31 days after this day He replaced Festus Ezeli, who wore number 31. Tons of other 31 around the Warriors. LeBron James is 31 years old this year, though. And Andre Iguodala, who wore number 9, and he was the MVP of the finals last year, came in and guarded LeBron James, so it made the 9-23. Last year, Andre Iguodala was 31 years old. Anyway, moral of the story, back to the retirement stuff. Elton Brand comes out of retirement on 1-4, the same day as the Cavs go 23-9. 14 days after 1-4, the Warriors kill the Cavs. 14 equals 41 and 104 in Gematria. The Warriors loss on 2/19 to the Blazers. The Warriors scored 104 points. So it goes with 14. Also, Pope Francis arrived in the United States 104 days before the 1-4 when Elton Brand came back and whatnot. If you write out 104 in Gematria, it equals 168, just like Cleveland Cavaliers. They equal 69 and 168. 1-4 was the 69th day of the NBA season. But once again, if you write out 69, it equals 49, which also equals Chicago Bulls and Warriors. If you go from 1-4 to 2/19, it's a span of 1 month, 15 days. 2/19 was the 115th day of the season. If you write out 115, it equals 92. But it's also a span of 46 days. If you write out the word 18, it equals 46. And remember the score of the Cavs-Toronto game on 1-4 that totaled up to 222. I talked about Varejao being picked up on 222. Anderson Varejao now wears number 18. And then 18 days later was when they played the Warriors played Portland again. Portland was the team who dropped him, that the Warriors then picked him up. And it was 3 days after the 2/19 game where the Portland Trailblazers beat the Warriors. They played again even 2 months and 22 days before the finals. So they pick up Varejao on 2/22. Then he plays his former team 2 months, 22 days before the NBA Finals. I also want to point out that 46 and 18 were super connected to the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Manning was number 18, playing in his 18th season. The first play of the Super Bowl was even an 18-yard pass to number 81. Tons of other stuff with that. And when the Warriors beat the Cavs by 34, it was on the 18th day of the year. Also, we talked about how it goes back to the Philadelphia train wreck and whatnot. Amtrak equals 222. The 9:23 stuff also, that Philadelphia train wreck was at 9:23 p.m. LeBron James was in the movie Trainwreck, where Amy Schumer is 9 years old in the opening scene. The rest of the movie takes place 23 years later. It even talks about the Mets and the Knicks, too. The Knicks, the team that LeBron got his 9 of 23 against. And then once again, LeBron James, 923, Jewish Gematria, Pope Francis equals 122, Trainwreck equals 122. But there was also another big Amtrak derailment in 2015, and it was in Vermont on October 5th. Look at that. The Philadelphia train wreck to the one in Vermont, a span of 146 days. And then this year, on Steph Curry's birthday, his 28th birthday, or Pi Day, whatever you want to call it, there was the Kansas Amtrak derailment that was going from California to Chicago, but it wrecked in Kansas. 3/14 is a span of 2 months and 19 days before the finals. Also, if you write out 146 like 146, it equals 56 and also 146. I talked about how it's super connected to Philadelphia. Larry Brown was the coach of the Philadelphia 76ers when Allen Iverson played. Larry Brown equals 56 and 146. Allen Iverson equals 56, 146. What's even funnier about this Vermont train wreck, I made a video about how I was talking about Abraham Lincoln and all kinds of stuff in regards to Philadelphia and how it ties into Abraham Lincoln and whatnot. And my aunt's brother, who I'm not related to, she married my dad's brother, but he got shot in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which adds up to 273 on the 273rd day of the year. Also on 273rd Street is where the school was. He was the principal and he got shot. His name in Gematria added up to 56. Her name in Gematria also adds up to 56. It was in Lincoln County, tons of other stuff. But what sticks out to me, they were telling me something by doing that. It made it on CNN and everything. So I wondered if he's a Freemason or if literally they did it just to whatever, you know, and I didn't have the balls to ask because I don't want to cause any family problems. But the kid who even shot him, his name was Mason Buell. Like Mason symbol, Mason Buell. I don't even know. Just so ridiculous. So my guess is that her brother is a Freemason and that was a fake story. If it was real, you know, I'll feel bad. And if it was real, that just makes it even worse because however they did it for me to see it. They even had a kid named Mason and they coded all these numbers into it. Absolutely crazy, you know. But anyway, their mom lives in Vermont. And I can't remember it all, but there was something to do with a 239 even where she lived and whatnot. So just super interesting. And it also connected to the same Amtrak in Philadelphia. There was something else about it. I made a video on it a while back. Just wanted to point it out because it connected to the 56s. I'm wondering if it connects to the 146 now when I think back on it. I need to go look. But just blows me away. That's all. I mean, I don't know. I just have to mention it. Actually, I just looked it up, but Vermont's the 14th state. It was also the 141st school shooting after Sandy Hook. So, I mean, super, super interesting, but whatever. We're going to move on. So, David Blatt, the Cavs coach, was fired on 1/22, the same day as Steve Kerr, who came back on the 44th game. The Warriors in their 44th season in Golden State. The Warriors scored 122 points that game even. Golden State equals 122. Blatt was fired because of the game on 1/18 when the Warriors won 132-98. 1/22 to the NBA Finals is 132 days, so the Warriors scored 132 points. Also connects to Antonin Scalia. His name in Gematria equals 132 and also 51. He died on the 44th day. The first day of Lupercalia. Lupercalia equals 44 and 98, just like the score of the Cavs. It was also a date, numerology of 51, February 13th. The Philadelphia train wreck last year even happened on the 132nd day of the year. So, just once again, pointing out some things I never noticed before in that game. Anyway, Elton Brand. Notice he was born on 3/11, the same day that the Anderson Varejao played his former team, the Portland Trail Blazers, 2 months, 22 days before the NBA Finals. Luke Walton, it also can be written as 113 or 11-3. Luke Walton was the interim head coach for Steve Kerr for 113 days. Curry wears number 30, the 113th prime, or the 30th prime is 113. Michael Jordan equals 113. Kobe Bryant equals 113. Tons of other 113s as well. So this whole season also, the Warriors have been coded or compared to the Chicago Bulls that were 72-10. Elton Brand, the guy who came back on 1-4, literally was drafted to the Chicago Bulls. You know, he was drafted the year after Michael Jordan had retired, before he came back for the Wizards. So super interesting. He comes back after Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan win their second three-peat. But also, this year was the year that Steve Kerr went to the Spurs and won the NBA Finals for the 4th consecutive year in a row, 1999. So, I mean, like I'm telling you, it's something super connected to Steve Kerr more than anything, it really seems like. I mean, Steve Kerr's connected to all of it. Pope Francis, to all the teams that I'm talking about. It's all about Steve Kerr. Elton Brand's full name is 71 and 197 in Gematria. If you write out Cleveland Cavaliers win NBA Finals 2016, it equals 197. Also notice that Elton Brand announced his retirement. It was on August 11th. That was the same day that Flip Saunders announced that he had cancer. It was the 223rd day of the year. Flip Saunders was born on February 23rd, 223. August 11th is also exactly 11 weeks before the NBA season began this year. Also, if you go from August 11th to the day the NBA Finals begin this year, it's a span of 9 months, 23 days. Go figure. I guess that's if you include the end date. I want to throw that in there. But I explained the end date thing this year. I haven't used it very much at all until this year. But I can't remember what it is. End date equals 26 or something, and 62 or something like that. It goes with the 62-26 stuff, though. Anyway, I apologize this is so long, but there's a lot of just information that I need to keep repeating so it makes more sense and whatnot. So, bear with me here. Another player who retired this season was Jason Richardson. Jason Richardson retired on 9/23, the day that Pope Francis went to the White House at 9:23 a.m. What sticks out the most to me about Jason Richardson is that he's one of 4 players to win back-to-back slam dunk contests. Zach LaVine, who was a teen Wolf last year, won the NBA slam dunk contest on Valentine's Day doing the Space Jam dunk and whatnot. Valentine's Day was 122 days after the Warriors won the NBA Finals. I talked a whole bunch. I didn't even know that much Gematria then. I just noticed there was a huge love and Valentine's Day theme, and it was all coded to the Golden State Warriors. And then when I found out Gematria, I found out Golden State equals 122, and they even won 122 days after Valentine's Day. So anyway, Zach LaVine slam dunk contest. He won back-to-back slam dunk contests this year on the All-Star Week. Also, Russell Westbrook won back-to-back MVP of the All-Star Game. So there was a back-to-back theme. So I truly think that they are foreshadowing a back-to-back championship. And if you go back and watch, I don't know when it was, maybe November or something, I talked about the death of Moses Malone and Daryl Dawkins, and also how it tied into Kevin Garnett, the original Teen Wolf, and how it ties into Lupercalia. Kevin Garnett's associated with the 56 like crazy as well. Daryl Dawkins, a former Philadelphia 76er, died last year in August. He was the first player out of high school to play in the NBA. Then Moses Malone in September, he died as well, a former Philadelphia 76er. He was the first player out of high school to play in the ABA. And then Kevin Garnett was the 4th player. And, he went to Minnesota, but he was the first Teen Wolf. A whole bunch of interesting information about that. So anyway, in regards to the back-to-back slam dunk contest, the only players to do it were Michael Jordan, Jason Richardson, Zach LaVine, and also Nate Robinson. And Nate Robinson, I don't know, he just sticks out. He was just in the news about wanting to play in the NFL. He also played 51 games for the Warriors in 2012, and then the next year he went to the Chicago Bulls. His name in Gematria, go figure, 146 and 56. I believe he was also the only player to win the slam dunk contest 3 times, but he did 2 of them back to back. I could be wrong, I just can't remember. There's so much information to remember. Anyway, back to Jason Richardson. He was drafted by the Golden State Warriors and even finished his career with the Philadelphia 76ers. He also went to Michigan State. So just interesting, they got knocked out of the tournament in the first round, even though a lot of people thought they were going to win it and whatnot. He also retired at the age of 34. His name in gematria identical to Cleveland Cavaliers, 69 and 168. But his full name equals 270 and 108. Golden State Warriors equals 108. It's just interesting that he retires on 9/23, and then he's connected to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Identical gematria. Another guy who retired this year, Hedo Turkoglu. He announced his retirement this year. He announced it on the same day of the Paris attacks, and he's also from Turkey, which just stands out because Turkey was the first country to declare ISIS or ISIL a terrorist organization. Turkey declared ISIS a terrorist group 2 years, 6 months, and 2 days before the terrorist attacks when Turkoglu announced his retirement. I mean, 262, just a super special number. I talked about it a lot in regards to Nancy Reagan's death and when the Lakers beat the Warriors on the 66th day of the year. Nancy Reagan in gematria equals 618 in English gematria and also in Jewish gematria. If you write out 618 in the other forms of gematria, it equals 199 and 919, a lot like September 19th, the 262nd day of the year, also the day that Pope Francis began his trip to the United States when he went to Cuba. Obama went to Cuba, I believe it was like 26 weeks and 2 days later. Yeah, or 6 months, 2 days, also 26 weeks, 2 days later. He actually got there on 3/20 though, which, I mean, it works the same way if you include the end date. And I don't know why he went there on 3/20 when all of the things said that he was going to be there on 3/21. But just wanted to point it out. Still makes sense. Still connected to the 26 and whatnot. Even the World Series and the Game 1, the power went out at 9:19 and it came back on at 9:23 p.m. Also, June 26, 626 was the day that gay marriage was legalized last year. It was also the day that Obama sang Amazing Grace at Clementa Pinckney's funeral. June 26 can also be written as 26/6, 923, the 266th day of the year. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope. I made a whole, 3 videos on YouTube, kept copyright striking my videos, pointing me to this date, June 26th. June 26th is also the halfway point from 329 to 923. It's a span of 89 days both ways. King James equals 89. Queen Elizabeth is 89 years old this year. Anyway, Turkoglu's real name is 197 and 71, just like Elton Brand. Just like Cleveland Cavaliers win the championship in 2016 or whatever. I can't remember what the exact, how I wrote it, but interesting that both of these guys retired this year, but Elton Brand came back. I just don't know what to think. Anyway, in regards to Elton Brand, too, retiring on the 223rd day of the year, the Paris attacks were also connected to 223. Friday the 13th was when it happened. Friday the 13th equals 223. February 13th equals 223. That's the first day of Lupercalia, the 44th day of the year, the day that Antonin Scalia died. The French train attack that happened in August that involved the same guy who was from Roseburg, Oregon. Then we had the Roseburg, Oregon shooting on the day with 91 days left until the end of the year. Jimmy Carter also turned 91 years old that day. It was also October 1st, 10-1, a lot like 101. Philadelphia equals 101. Anyway, moral of the story, the French train attack happened 2 months, 23 days before the Paris attacks on Friday the 13th. It equals 223. The synagogue of Satan equals 223. They're the false Jews that are mentioned in the book of Revelation that also mentions Philadelphia as one of the 7 churches. Skull and crossbones equals 223. Napoleon, France and whatnot, Napoleon, his full name equals 223 as well. So whatever, it's super long. I wrote it here too, it just makes me wonder if the winner isn't actually chosen yet. Because in the Super Bowl, they coded a whole bunch of teams to the Chicago Bears from 1985. So maybe they just put a story to each one of these teams, and then they put out media stories, and they see what people get behind and what people start swaying towards, and then they roll with that story. I mean, I really don't know. Or maybe it completely is chosen. Maybe they already know who's going to win. But just something to think about. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely coded. It's unbelievable. And since the video is already super long, I just watched the Cavaliers-Hawks game that was on tonight. And the Hawks ended up losing with 108 points, like Golden State Warriors and whatnot. But look at the box score here. I've been talking about all the 9-23 stuff and how nobody shoots 9 of 23. The last game, Kyrie Irving shot 9 of 23. And then LeBron James didn't even play. But look, tonight, Jeff Teague, 9 of 23. No coincidence, I guarantee it. That's all a reason. I'm trying to figure it out in my head. But Jeff Teague shoots 9 of 23. They score 108 points like Golden State Warriors. So maybe in some weird way they're coding the Warriors to 923 a different way. I don't know. I got to think about it. But just super interesting. There's rarely anybody who does this, and then he does it tonight against the Cavaliers. The score in this game, if you watch it too, the Cavaliers were just completely demolishing the Hawks. And then the Hawks came back and whatnot, even took the lead. And then the score became tied 64-64 in the third quarter. 1964 was the last time that Cleveland has won a sports championship 51 years ago. But if you write out the word 64 in gematria, it equals 49, just like Warriors, just like Chicago Bulls. The game even went to overtime. 96-96, 96 in gematria equals 49. Jeffrey Teague, his full name equals 62. Jeff Teague equals 86. I mean, some other interesting numbers in here, but just want to point these out. Jeffrey Teague, 62. Jeff Teague, 86. Today is 62 days before 6/2. The day the NBA Finals begin, also 8 weeks, 6 days. So the 86 and 62. To me, that's a guarantee that the Cavs will be in the finals. What's even funnier, for one, 110 is a number often associated with the 56. Osama bin Laden equals 56 and 110. The World Trade Centers were 110 stories tall. Adolf Hitler equals 110 and 56. Tons of other examples, but the total score was 218. If you read out the word 219 that I'm talking about with back-to-back championships, 219 equals 218. So who knows, I don't know. I'm really stuck on the Warriors. I think it's going to be Cavs Warriors. The Warriors are going to win, probably go 7 games, and I think it's going to finish maybe on June 14th, the day that I've been talking about, Pope Francis's 1189th day, Donald Trump's birthday. Just seems really fitting, but maybe I could be completely wrong. Whatever. I'm still watching the DVR of the Golden State game. So we'll see what happens in that as well. I'm going to make another video about the English Civil War and the North Carolina-Syracuse game tomorrow, and also how it ties into the Cavs, I think. So whatever, have a good night. Thanks for listening.